Escaping poverty is not about laziness, motivation, or grinding harder. I know this firsthand because I grew up in a single parent household. We were on EBT and my mom worked multiple jobs. My mom migrated here from the Dominican Republic. Regardless how bad it was here in America, it was still 100 times better than what she was used to. And I think that's kind of the problem. If your baseline is extreme poverty, once you come to America, you feel like you made it, even if you're not living in the best of conditions, because compared to what they come from, this is a lot better. And a lot of people get stuck in that comfort zone of better, but not enough. So when you grow up like that, you start the race severely behind. And we're taught to be grateful for what we do have, even though it's the same thing that's keeping us back. But the truth is, there's a lot of ways to catch up. So today I'm gonna break down why poverty is so hard to escape and the things that people do differently to get out of it. So everyone talks about this starting line, and I think it's a valid point, but the starting line determines your education, your safety, the people around you, opportunities, connections, financial habits, stress levels. And that's not an excuse, that's data. But the good news is that even though this is true, the starting line just defines where you start, but it doesn't determine where you finish. And then I really believe the first thing you need to do is change your environment. If you're around people that are constantly negative and just talking about how hard life is and they're always down, and they have no goals, or they don't try to figure out a way to get out of their current situation, then you have to change your environment. And if you're watching this, I don't know if you're into real estate or not, there's real estate investment meetups that you could go to, and then you could talk to successful real estate investors. And usually those are the most wealthy people in your city. And then you could get around them and ask them questions and see how they were able to escape poverty. A lot of times I've noticed that a lot of these successful people, they actually don't come from money, or the majority of people I meet are people that came from nothing and they grinded and they got themselves out of that situation. So I would change your environment. That'll be the first thing. I would even add that you need to start reading books. There was one time where I was just so fed up with how everything was going in my life. I was determined to change my situation. So what did I do? I read a book every single week for a year. I read 52 books that year. And it was all the classics: Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, The Richest Man in Babylon. It's all these entrepreneur, self-help type books, until I read so many of them that, like, even the new books, they all sound the same because they all preach the same thing. You have to read books. And I know most people don't like reading books, and I didn't either. But if you want actual change, you got to do things that you don't want to do. Another thing I did, I found someone that was a lot of steps ahead of me, and I just modeled their success. What I've learned is that people root for the underdog. So when you go to these rooms and you meet these people, they can see themselves in you. So they want to help you out. You know, wealthy people are stigmatized, not be the most friendly. But I've noticed, like, the more money someone has, the more open they are to sharing, like, what they know, the mistakes they've made. So I would get around those people, model their success, and get a mentor. It's super important. Now, you don't have to, I know there's a whole lot of scams online where you pay a whole bunch of money to get mentors online, but I would say get someone local, someone you could talk to, you could pick up the phone, grab some coffee with, just because it makes it more real than just online. And now, if you can't find someone in real life, then go ahead and, join a community online, like a Bigger Pockets or a Facebook real estate group or a Facebook anything group, just so you could be around the people, and then this could start becoming real for you. And then the thing you need to do after that, you have to learn one high income producing skill. Now, that could be real estate, that could be coding, that could be editing, just anything that makes good money that you could get good at. I believe most people slack because all the information for everything you want is on the internet. You could go on YouTube or ChatGPT and figure out almost anything in the world. And people choose not to do it for whatever reason. I don't know. Any question I've ever had, I look it up and I try to figure it out. Like, if you want to learn a new skill or you want to join a new industry, why not go online and find people that are going through exactly what you want to go through and are actually successful doing it? So, like, this is the biggest cheat code, because there's thousands of people like me that make videos on what they're doing because they love doing what they do. So that's a hack in itself, to find these online communities and find these people. Use the internet for something more than just pure entertainment. Do something that's gonna actually help you. So another thing that is valid, basically when you're in survival mode, you can't think about the next 5 years. All you're thinking about is, where am I gonna get food from next? How am I gonna eat? And I've been there. So how do you fight that? I would say do the boring thing and build an emergency fund. And I think that should be $10,000, and I'm gonna make a video on that next. Build a fund where you have some money where you're not stressing about small bills, emergencies that come up, or anything else, because life is life and things are gonna happen regardless, to me, to you, to everybody. So you have to have some money stacked up. And how do you get the money? Side hustles, get another job, work multiple jobs, do whatever it takes for you to have some money saved up so you're not constantly stressed out because you don't know where you're gonna get your next meal from. And that's reality, and I've been there, so I get it. Because with this tiny buffer, it gives you the mental space to actually make long-term decisions. Just start putting $10 to $20 aside every single week. Some weeks you might not be able to do it, but just be consistent and start building that up. My whole channel is basically finding loopholes and beating the system. And I've heard this my whole life. You need to work harder. You need to work harder. But that's not the truth. Like, the hardest working people are construction workers, people that do physical labor. And these are not the guys that are multimillionaires. The people that actually get ahead use leverage. They leverage their skills. They leverage their network. They leverage real estate, stocks. Like, they work smarter. Another issue is like the generational issues. Like, your parents always tell you not to take risks, do the safe thing. And it usually comes from a place of love, and they want you to do good. They don't want you to fail. You have to see where the advice is coming from or who's giving the advice. Like, if they've never done anything with their life in the entrepreneurial space or in business, like, I'm not going to take their advice. There's thousands of people that have done what I want to do. I should get advice from them. And that's kind of the problem too. When you grow up in poverty, like, you're getting advice from these people that come from poverty as well, and they have done nothing to escape, and they just want you to do better than they did. But sometimes that better is still not enough. What I did was I learned about real estate. I learned about credit. I learned about stocks. I learned about business. And that's where everyone should start. How are we supposed to find the loopholes or get out of poverty when we're playing a game without knowing the rules? It has to be your number one main concern, is to figure out how all of this works. If you come from nothing, your parents are not going to tell you this is how you get a loan, this is how 401k works, an IRA, this is what you're supposed to do. They don't know about index funds. They don't know about house hacking, but that's fine. It's not to knock them, but it's not something they know. So what you need to do is learn about everything, become obsessed with financial independence. And then more importantly, replace survival habits with growth habits. And stop thinking so short term. Start reading, start working on discipline, start working on consistency. Another hack, and you probably heard this 1,000 times, but everything you want comes from being consistent. With everything I've learned, if you're not consistent, you're not getting anything out of life. You have to be consistent. Another thing that I don't think people talk about, it's the poverty premium. Like, when you're poor, you pay more money for almost everything. And it doesn't make sense because you don't have any money. So, for example, some bread, some turkey, and some cheese. And at the corner store, this is going to cost so much more than if you just go to the supermarket. But if you don't have a car, you don't have gas money, you can't drive to the other side of town, you don't really got money to take the bus, you have to take whatever you have. And then not only that, like, even the credit cards you get when your credit score is lower, they charge you a crazy amount of interest. They charge you more because you don't have money. And then the funny thing is, like, now that I deal with banks and I've seen how they operate, like, banks only really want to give money to people that already have money and are established. They're not going to take a chance on you or me. So yes, there is a poverty premium. The solution to that is build your credit. Get a secured card if you have to. So I would use just 10% and then pay it off every single month, and then get more credit cards, and just don't fall into credit card debt, but use it. You got to finesse these systems. Like, these systems, I'm starting to think, are put here to just finesse the average person. But if you're smart, you could use them to your advantage. And that's how I've hacked flights on JetBlue. I've taken so many flights on JetBlue using my points because I have the JetBlue credit card. And I just use that card for things I'm gonna already buy, and then I pay it off every single month. So now I get free flights, and I use the leverage. Now we just can't get stuck and start buying things we actually don't need with the credit card. Then you get into debt, and then that's a whole other problem that you got to get yourself out of. A lot of pushback I get even with my own friends. They're like, yeah, you could do that. Yeah, you could pull that off, but that's you and I can't do it. And the truth is, like, I'm not special. The only difference between me and my friends is that I can handle discomfort for a long period of time. And people don't want to be uncomfortable. Like, I could handle that. I could do the work. I can make the phone calls for hours and hours. I could look dumb. I can make a video and get hate comments. I could show up somewhere, networking event, not know anyone, and ask the questions that are super basic, and people kind of look at you funny because why don't you know that? Like, I don't care about looking bad. Like, I got to the point where I finally figured out, in order to be successful, you have to be bad at whatever the thing is in the beginning, and then eventually you get good at it. So I could just handle that discomfort, and it's really not even a big deal, because what I've noticed too is, like, a lot of people that are doing good, they're not gonna belittle you. They're not gonna, like, look at you a certain way. It's usually the people that are doing the same or worse that always are the ones that are going to judge you for trying to do something different. Escaping poverty isn't about luck, talent, or even intelligence. It's about learning the rules no one taught you and playing the game differently than the environment that you come from. If you take all these steps consistently for a year, your life will be completely different. If you want more videos on money, finances, real estate, subscribe, leave a comment. I respond to everyone, and I have my newsletter in the description. It's free. I break down all my thoughts for the week. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.